We're talking about transparency and the fear of being transparent, whether in our church or outside the church. The first thing is, let's analyze your reasons for being fearful. Why are you afraid of being transparent? If you are paranoid about being guilty by association, by being lumped in with those people who claim to be Christians, but they're misusing the label, they're misrepresenting the Bible, let God use you to change the narrative. So if you're different, then maybe you have an opportunity to be a witness of what a true Christian is supposed to be. If you are afraid or you have this feeling like, you have to be right before you can share your faith, just like that feeling like we have to be right before we go into church. Check this. If we had to be spotless before we stepped into the church would be empty. Righteous by works is not a thing. That is fake news. You see what I'm saying? So it is by faith that we are saved, and it is by sharing the little that you have that you get more and that you bolster your faith to get stronger. If you are waiting for God to deliver you out of a trial before you tell someone about it, you're missing a blessing. In some cases, when you tell a non-believer about something you're going through, it might actually increase a chance of God coming through for you in a mighty way. Because he is going to prove to that unbeliever, this is how I get down. This is how I treat my people. You see what I'm saying? If you are afraid of someone coming to your church on your account, and you don't want them to see dysfunction, you're like, I don't want to see hypocrisy or backbiting. When it comes to winning souls for the kingdom, just remember it is not our job to close the sale. It's not our job to finalize the deal. We're only supposed to make the connection to Christ and let the Holy Spirit do the work. Let God upsell them. Let God do the work that only he can do. Only he can change hearts. We can't do that. We're not the product owner. We're not the distributor. We're not the wholesaler. We are an affiliate of salvation. So you just point people to Christ, let them do the rest. So that's the first thing. Analyze your reasons for being fearful, and let's get rid of those one by one by God's grace. The second thing is, if you see someone in your church who's struggling with something, maybe it's a substance abuse, addiction, gambling, some other bad habit, maybe it's a financial difficulty, examine your own life and see if there's some things that maybe you've done, some experiences you've gone through that you're not proud of, but they can resonate with that individual. Be transparent, because if you're transparent, you can be a blessing to someone that makes your ministry to them far more effective than someone who does not have that background. Maybe you were called for such a time as this. So pray for direction first. Pray for opportunities to reach out for them. See if you can engage them in conversation. In private. In private is usually best. Sometimes they're people who are very reserved. And they're going through things, but you try to talk to them and they just clam up. Here's the thing. If you get transparent and make yourself vulnerable first, eventually they will open up. So let's say that you suspect that they're struggling with their marriage, but they don't want to speak on it. Go ahead and proffer the fact that you too have struggles in your relationships. Talk about mistakes that you make and how you let the devil get between you and your spouse, and how you were able to overcome, or you are overcoming in those moments by God's grace. Like I said, it's not going to happen overnight, but eventually you will make a connection. And the third thing that I have is that if you're trying to be transparent outside of work or outside in the workplace, you have to be careful, obviously, in this settings. Even in a private corporation or government locale, there's sometimes rules in place. So you don't want to be hitting someone over the top of the head with the Bible. You don't want to be on the side, of the building with a loudspeaker. Here's something that I would suggest. When you talk to your coworkers, or if you're at school, you're talking to your classmates, just interject some faith-based jargon into your interaction. Actually, back when I had a job before I started working for myself, one of my coworkers, this lady, every time she asked me how I was doing, I would say I was blessed and highly favored. And this is something we say in church all the time, but outside the church, most folks haven't heard that. So she's just so geeked by that. And so one day I remember, I don't know what it was going on, why I didn't respond in that manner. But she asked how I was doing, and I said, I'm good, how are you? And she says, I'm good, but I was hoping that you would say I'm blessed and highly favored. And so she asked me, where's it even come from? I said, that's from the Bible. That's from Luke chapter 1. And it sparked a conversation about faith. We're praying for opportunities to witness in a way that's respectful of the environment that you're in, where they're asking you questions. but you need to start injecting those statements into your conversation. For example, I pray that, I have faith that, by God's grace, I was blessed by. Those are those trigger words for someone who, hopefully eventually they'll take the bait. They may not catch on right away, but over time they'll say, hey, what faith are you in? You keep mentioning these things. So obviously that will pique their curiosity. So instead of, let me tell you about Jeremiah 29:11 and trying to have an all-out Bible study by the water cooler, maybe you might say something like, maybe someone asks about your behavior. They see you acting differently. And, I know one of the pastors in my old church used to quote this quote, preach the gospel, use words if necessary. So your actions should show yourself as being different. And eventually people want to know the words and the reason behind what you're doing. So they see you with a different response and the world responds. They ask you, and you can say, hey, I was reading in my devotion this morning this passage that talks about the thoughts that God has towards us, thoughts of peace and thoughts not of evil. And so your experiential transparency is something that no one can argue with. In other words, if you're telling someone your story of what's happened in your life in the past, no one can say anything about that. Versus if you talk about the Bible and your interpretation of the Bible, it's all theory. And there's a million different interpretations that you can have, but your experience is your experience. So use that to your advantage. Don't be afraid of being transparent, because when you are transparent, you're not just a cesspool of stagnant water. Your faith is flowing out of you and into the lives of others, reviving your own life in the process.